Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the tree tops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. Just like the ones I used to know, where the tree tops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. Oh yeah, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days, may your days, may your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the tree tops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. Just like the ones I used to know, where the tree tops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. Oh yeah, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days, may your days, may your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the tree tops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. I am dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the tree tops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. Oh yeah,
Now volume is up.
dreaming.
This.
Okay.
Then we'll do this.
Hey.
Oh my gosh. All right, let's see if this works.
So, Sandy, I saw in the comments you said that you're not seeing the stream. Are you seeing it now? Because we just actually started the video. And as always, you guys, let us know how the sound is and if there's any sync issues, etc. And just let us know in the comments. That would be
All
really,
right.
really helpful.
Yes, we'll do a quick couple-minute sound check.
Yeah.
Just to make sure
Well,
everything
Cindy
is
can see
sounding
us. That's great. Yay. Okay, Barbara can see us. Okay.
That's good.
Our images are now in Germany. This is good.
Oh my gosh. Welcome to our studio
Yes.
3.0.
Yes.
We figured we'd give the baby a little space of his own when he comes out, so we decided to move like half of everything in the apartment.
I feel like we've actually moved everything in the apartment. It's like we moved out and moved back in.
Yeah, it's crazy, but hopefully it still looks good. Let me know what you
Yes.
guys think.
Yes.
Oh
And
my
we're
gosh.
glad that you like our tree. Craig was so excited. He put it up like as soon as possible. So, and can everybody hear us okay? Because I know you can see us, but can you hear us? And aloha, Leanne from Arkansas. It's great to see you.
Not only nesting, but it's just how do we function, with everything going on and a little one that will soon be running around all the
This
place.
is true.
Oh, we could do a little baby check-in and see how
Yeah.
you're doing with that. 'Cause 7 pounds, you said?
Yes, so yesterday, for those of you that are curious, so yesterday I had a doctor's appointment. I am now 36 weeks pregnant. And the doctor was like, well, the good news is you have a very healthy baby, and he's on track. The bad news is you have a very healthy, very, very healthy baby. He's already 7 pounds. So I'm feeling kind of heavy. And if I make it to my due date, he will be well over 8 pounds. So yay. But both Craig and I are just grateful he's healthy. And everything has been going really smoothly. I definitely have been feeling that nesting thing. Poor Craig is always like, put that down, stop doing that. You need to rest. And I'm just like, no, I've got to completely redo this closet. And then I'll spend like 2 hours. Now, I have to say, it's been really satisfying going through and doing all of that nesting. I wish we'd had time to do it earlier so we could enjoy it for a little longer before the baby comes. But it's been really awesome, like getting everything in order. So it's been a lot of fun, and we don't have a name yet. What we're kind of planning, we have sort of have a top three right now, and we're going to meet him and then decide.
Yeah, we realized for the first time in our relationship. Usually we're always on the same page, but we've come to the conclusion that Sarah's horrible with baby names.
No, I'm not. You're horrible at baby names.
And so
Craig
that's
Chee.
been one. That's been one thing where we have some
It's
favorites.
the one place we've
but-
really disagreed on. But honestly, I know as soon as we see him, we're gonna be so excited, and like I'm sure it will all come together. So we're very excited.
So one that my brother thought of, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but having his first name be Marty with middle initial R, so that he'd be Marty Archie,
Yes.
which I think is amazing.
One of my personal favorites is Mo, so that he would be Mochi, after one of my favorite snacks.
And I should do a 360. It's been a while since I've done any 360 stuff. Maybe later this December for sure. But for today, we really wanted to do, I think, was this a whole year of live streams that we've done? I think, the live stream thing was started out as a way to really connect on a deeper level with our online school students, and we decided halfway through, we wanted to actually make it a public thing so we can have input from the school members, but also get a chance to just hang out and get to know all of our fans a little bit better. And so we're thinking, I have a really fun chord melody version of Edelweiss that we'll learn. But
Yes.
we figured we'll do a little bit of Q&A. We had a bunch of questions through emails and some of our private face-to-face lessons that we figured we'll give you guys an opportunity to ask us anything.
Yes.
And we'll start playing right after that.
And also, for those of you that didn't notice in the
Tai Chi, yes.
yes, Tai Chi. For those of you that didn't notice, in the description just under the video, we actually have a link. If you would like to just, you don't need it for the live stream per se, but you can, there's a link that takes you to a form that you'll fill out where you get a free PDF from us that has the chord melody that Craig will, a basic chord melody that Craig will go through today. So you'll have that. Yeah, sorry.
And actually, speaking of Palmdale and hoping to be through again, one of the big changes, the past 4 or 5 years have been absolutely insane with all the international travels and just flying in general. With the baby coming January, next year we'll be home a little bit more, but we are still going to focus more on domestic trips, so that because it's been so long since we even did like a California tour,
I think
which
it's
is
been 4 or 5
crazy.
years.
But hopefully, and one of the things we're trying to do too, one of my secret plans is we realized in the past couple years as we traveled how important dealers are to ukulele companies and just music in general. So one of the things that we want to start putting together is a dealer tour where we actually do a workshop and mini concert at dealers throughout the U.S. and hopefully bring more awareness and just connect people through that. So that's something on our plate to try and get done for later next year. But also being able to get in the car with the kid and drive up the coast and maybe head up from here to Washington and do a bunch of stops on the way. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
And as well as uke clubs as well.
Yeah.
Like it'll be really fun to be able to get to do that and to have our little one meet all of their aunties and uncles.
Yes. And there's a couple events I can't say yet. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, so
unfortunately.
there's some really fun things lined up for next year that we can't
say yet.
Can I give hints or no? That's so bad. All right.
One of them might be in the Midwest. That's the hint for that one. We can say no more. And then there is a possibility that we might we're still sort of figuring things out on this, but there is a possibility that we may go back to Germany. So keep your eyes peeled, those of you in Germany. And then ones that we can say, Bend, Oregon, right? We can say that one.
Yes. Yes. Uke University at Bend, Oregon is doing a collaboration this year for the first time with the Sisters Festival group.
Yeah.
Lots of information if you Google Uke or Uke University Bend, Oregon. You're going to find a lot of information on that. It's
Yeah.
still kind of being put together, but they do sell out every year. It's going to be at a new location this year with camping on the grounds and everything. It's going to be a ton of fun. We're really excited for that one.
Yeah, we were very thrilled when Bob asked us to be a part of that event. And there's going to be some cool artists that we can't say yet, but we can tell you we're going to be there for sure. And then we also have our San Diego Ukulele Retreat. I believe there are, last time we chatted, I think we might only have one spot available.
I know, it's crazy.
It might be 2 spots available, but it's almost sold out.
Oh, and that is something I kind of want to talk a little bit about because we always have questions about that. So our first ever San Diego Ukulele Retreat was kind of taking the event that we usually do, which is the Uke Cruise event, and taking that kind of atmosphere and putting it on land, mainly because we can't travel with the kid on a ship.
Yeah,
for
the
first
ships
year.
aren't really big on newborns, which is fine.
But it's been so incredibly successful thus far with the anticipation, and we're already brainstorming so much on the event itself with Neil Chin and Milo Foltz. Chances are we will do smaller events throughout the year too, where it won't necessarily be like that super fancy type of event, but again, the main focus is the instructional side. You know, for many of you who know us, we don't typically jam a ton at our events. We love just teaching as much as possible, but there will be some themes that we're going to kind of push, and one will be this coming year will be playing in a group and how to really expand in that area. And then from there on, there will be, like, I think we want to do a Hawaiian theme where we actually have some guest teachers from the islands come up, and we'll really focus on technique building with that in mind. And there's a couple different events that we have in our heads that we just kind of need to iron out once the baby is here. But if there's anything that you guys would like us to focus on in any future event, just let us know. I'm always, as many of you know, I'm always thinking of new and fun ideas to do. And this is actually the ukulele that every single participant in our San Diego event is going to receive, which is an amazing collaboration with Kanalea Ukuleles. I can't thank them enough for that. But yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
Well, should we answer some questions that we have from our Artist Work students?
Oh, yeah.
Is it time to start answering some of those?
Yeah, so one was, how was this? So what you were hearing earlier, too, was from our new holiday album.
Yes.
And one of the questions that came up was, how was this album different? You know, what process-wise, recording-wise?
So this album, one of the things that both Craig and I really wanted to do is to try to make it, we wanted to not just do the same old. And we wanted to really take the arrangements and change them up and do something different with them. So we started working on this project in July of this year, really trying to hone in like different styles and different themes and things. The whittling down that list of songs was actually quite difficult because I think we had like 20 that we were like, we have to record this. And so I know for me, in going through and doing a bunch of the arranging, I had so much, it was really freeing to try to play songs in styles that I had never heard them done before. And it was actually a lot of fun getting to just play around. And I mean, to me, the most surprising song was Sleigh Ride, when initially we were thinking, oh, we can kind of give it like a bluegrass feel. And we actually were going to record a banjo uke on it using the bean sprout that Aaron Klein built for us. But then I forget what we were doing. We were just on the couch hanging out, and Craig started playing it with more of that island feel, and it was like, oh, this really grooves. Oh, I like it. And so it was just really fun trying out new stuff.
The hippopotamus song was a complete accident.
Oh my goodness. Oh man, the
I
hippo
loved
song.
it. I loved
So
it.
that, okay, I don't know about you guys. So my growing up, when I would visit the Christian side of my family, the tree decorating music was usually Dr. Demento's CD, and that song was on there. And as a little kid, that was my absolute favorite Christmas song. And Craig had never heard it, so I played it for him in July, and he was adamant, we have to do this. And I was the one saying, no, 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 no. It's too silly. We can't do that song. And then Craig won, obviously, because it's on the album. And I have to say, that's like a song that so many people talk about. And the bowing that you hear, the arco solo, is actually our bass player Milo, who's doing that.
Yeah, Milo Foltz was on bass for everything, and we had Merlin Showalter on drums. It was fantastic. Yeah. Tyler Fortier, one of our old producer for many years, did such an incredible job putting it together. But it was Daniel Ward who actually mastered it. And
Yes.
Many people don't realize he's an amazing sound engineer as well. So kudos to him.
Yes, thank you, Daniel.
And Fred had a good question. Can you say something about your 12-week certification course? The cert program is very different from our online school with Artist Works. The cert program kind of cherry picks some of the lessons in a structured kind of 12-week course, but you're also learning music theory. You're also learning
reading,
sight reading, notation. So it's much more than just ukulele. What they wanted to do with that cert program was actually make it available for students to get college credit.
Because all of the lessons that are in it are accredited. So high school students who take the courses and things, because eventually the idea is that this program will actually go into high schools, so that schools that don't have a music program can actually have this, and their students will get college credit for it as well. But you learn more than just ukulele. You learn relative pitches, intervals. And
so it is a very...
It's a different beast.
It's a very different vibe from our online school, where you have more freedom. You have, if you're busy a week, it won't affect you in that sense, and also the great community we have with that school as well.
Yeah. Also, with the 12-week program, you have a 4-week, an 8-week, and a 12-week assignment. And those are very specific, and we give you very rigid guidelines for these assignments, versus if you take our regular online course, you're free to submit videos whenever you want, and you get personalized feedback on both. But I feel like the feedback that you get in the regular school, it's a lot. We can be freer with the feedback, whereas with the 12-week programs, we have specific criteria that we are looking for. So it is, if you really like structure, the 12-week program is great. But if you really would like to be able to be, I don't want to say more musical, because that's not quite the right word, but if you want to be a little bit more free in your learning experience, the standard online program was probably free.
Well, the great thing about that regular online school too is if you're working on a song, you can do a video of yourself playing through, and we'll actually give you advice and things to try out. So you do get way more one-on-one attention with that compared to the certification.
The cert program, you have to do what's in the assignment.
One of the cool things about this setup is that compared to being stuck in that little office area, now I can totally... So we are right next to each other now, instead of having to be in random corners and so this is nice.
Oh my gosh. There was a question from Teco, one of our online students. He said on his F7 shape, when he plays it higher up, I tend to twist my middle finger so my nail is facing my right hand. Is this a bad habit? And both Craig and I said, no, actually.
Yeah, so with Teco's question about when playing an F7 shape, which looks like an F with friends, again, part of why having a small angle is so useful is that if you're trying to, we call this piano fingers when everything is lined up and down the frets. Playing it like this not only pops out that wrist, which can make it a little bit harder and more strain on your hand, but it makes these two guys also fight over that same lane compared to, again, having this nice resting spot, having a little tip of your thumb there so your wrist is nice and straight, having the F chord already kind of tilted a little bit so that these two guys can really have a lot more freedom to just hang out there. And again, because we don't rely on that thumb, I'm using all of these bigger muscles instead of pinching with that thumb and the rest of the fingers. So you can take that shape all the way up if you wanted to. But yeah, having an angle like that is always going to be a little bit more easy on the fingers and the wrist. This even comes into play like a D minor. Again, more angle gives you more freedom for these guys to share that same fret compared to trying to do it this way.
Absolutely. And also, Teco just wrote in F9. So are you also talking about this shape, which would be 2, 3, 3, 3, where I tend to do a double bar like this. And it's the same principle as what Craig was talking about in that I'm pulling into my body, making sure I use these larger muscles because it's a bar chord. But instead of my thumb being up here, the thumb is, a fret or two away from the bar itself, pointed up at the headstock. For me, when I do this chord, I sometimes will do it like this. Sometimes I'll do it with all 4 fingers, depending on what chord comes before or after it. Never be married to how you learned your chords because sometimes context is what's going to make you change how you're going to play it.
For me, I love using my middle and ring finger because it just naturally happens to fall. That's my longest finger with 4 strings, and
you can still manipulate with your pinky even when you hold it that way, which is great.
But there's a lot of times if you do it with the 4 fingers, again, you don't need to have the wrist out like this or straight. Again, it's just as you were to play a C chord or an F chord, right? My wrist isn't changing, my angle isn't changing from a C, F, G7. I can get to that chord very easily without necessarily, again, bending my wrist.
We have another great question in the chat, which is coming from another one of our Artist Work students, Chris, also known as Stowe. He's asking about beyond
that was
chord
his secret identity.
Oh, sorry. He's asking, beyond chord melody and scales, how do you come up with your solos on that, especially on our CD Christmas Island?
Oh my gosh, it's so one of the beautiful things about having a studio where you live is that you could wake up inspired one morning, make some coffee, put on pajamas, and just knock out a few solos that that just came to you, or want to try out some ideas. There's such a big difference than going to a studio knowing you're paying like $50, $60, $70 an hour, and every mistake is like money out the window.
Yes.
So I feel like I have more freedom to try things compared to like having it have to be set if I'm going to a studio. And some of the things, there are some genres even in this holiday album that I was not super familiar with. So a lot of it, I would just try to hum something fun and then mimic that on the uke. And I think that's where a lot of that creativity comes from. And part of it is just experimenting. That's all the stuff you learn, all the scales, all the techniques stuff. A lot of it is knowing the rules so that you can break them or to have variations of, and that's what really starts to make it your own sound.
And I know for me, let's say, I think I did all the solos on Let It Snow on the Barry tenor, if I remember right. And for me, each song I'm going to have a different approach typically for each song. And a lot of times for Let It Snow, I was actually thinking more about arpeggiating and making sure to play like the accidentals in my solos when I was over specific chords, because there are so many chords that do look alike and sound alike in that particular tune. So I was trying to make sure I really hammered on some of those accidentals, as well as throw in some of the melody as well. And also the other thing that I did, and I think I did this on when I did my solo on Christmas Island, I was thinking about sort of generalization. So, for example, if there was a section of the song where it was mostly chords found in the key of, I can't even remember what key that song is in. For example, if I had a lot of 2/5 movement in the key of F, I would make sure just focus more on key of F. But then maybe this next measure, oh look, there's a D7 that's usually not found in F. So again, make sure I play the accidental, so that you hear that change, and then go back to key of F if that's if it's G minor and C7, go back to the key of F again. So that's some of my thought process for going through. A lot of times when I'm going to solo over a song on an album, I'll actually spend a lot of time making sure that I know my melody really well before I even get started, because I find that for me, even if I don't end up using some of my melody for the solo, just knowing the tune really, really well before I get started is very important. Otherwise, my solo will have no relation to the song itself. And yeah, so but I do a lot of sort of generalization. So if I see 2/5s in one key, I'll play the scale of that key, and then if it switches to a different 2/5, I'll think in another key in order to help me with that. But that's kind of some of the things that I think about when I'm soloing, especially on this particular album.
And again, sometimes thinking about what type of vibe, like for example, in our intro here, we were playing snippets of White Christmas,
Yeah.
which we did as a
Jazz samba.
jazz samba. And so I wanted to have this really smooth kind of link throughout some of my runs, compared to something like Melekalikimaka, where everything is kind of has a very kind of punchy vibe. So I mean, that kind of thing will influence a little bit of what techniques we pull from to make it match that sound and that vibe.
Ooh, great question. Claudia from Vancouver, Washington. She's asking, can you share some of your practice techniques?
So practice technique. So here's my spiel about like about practicing and just learning music in general. And this is something, whether or not you're with us at Artist Works or not, usually every December, especially with our private students as well, we sit them down and we talk about how the year went. Just like anything in life, sometimes we think we want this one thing, whether it's playing a certain style or being able to play a certain song. And sometimes those priorities change, or we realize in order to play that style, I need to focus way more on getting my left hand more nimble to get some of these different chord shapes that you'll frequent in, like in jazz or some of the solo runs. We're not used to certain stretches. Every year I tend to make them reprioritize what's important, and then focus on drills that will help get you from point A to point B. Again, it's hard with so many things on YouTube. Sometimes it is so distracting to really focus and to find the connection on how to utilize what you're learning. So part of it is, again, looking at the long-term goal. What kind of player you want to be. Do you want to be an excellent rhythm player where you can play all the way up the neck and really help accent another person? Or as a vocalist, how can I utilize a lot of that rhythm based things to make my voice stand up more? Or do I want to be more lead? Do I want to focus on fills? Do I want to focus on the solos? Because if you're focusing on solos, I would do way more scale work. I would do way more of that kind of technique building and things that you can utilize in like 5-minute increments.
Yeah.
And if you want to be a better rhythm player and just get things under your fingers better, part of it is just being able to do your different voicings of the neck, or work on your different stretches, like like the spiders and the caterpillar exercises, those kind of things. Um, or if you're really focusing on ear training, you know, or ranging. I mean, there's so many things
That you can
that you can
practice.
practice,
Yeah.
and you can't do it all. You really can't. So part of it is pushing yourself to a certain point, and when you get to that point, then you can kind of raise the other things up there to match. When I first started, I always felt like my left hand was getting there, and then my right hand would do this, and then back and forth.
Yeah.
And then we have a whole other column for like the intellectual side of it, like the theory, right? So if you try to do everything at once, everything goes so much slower. So and a lot of times, especially like the left hand stuff, a lot of it is just doing it over and over and over, and you can't fake that. You can't.
Yeah, you have to take the time to do the repetition. And same with like practicing with the metronome. If you want to be a really good just player in general, I know people hate the metronome. You could use a drum machine instead, or even practice with play-alongs. There's tons of them out there in various keys. You can use play-alongs not only for practicing solos, but also for practicing your rhythm playing, because they're playing to a metronome, and this will allow you to feel more musical in your practice session. I always like to sort of break up my sessions into different little bite-sized things, because it's really easy to get interrupted throughout your practice session. So I will start off with like a 2 to 5 minute warm-up exercise that might include stretching. Then I'll work on something that's really hard. So let's say when we were getting ready for the album, for example, I would actually be like, okay, I am going to work on, my rhythm for White Christmas, because that particular rhythm was really difficult, especially with the chord changes I had going on. So I would work on just the rhythm and 2 chord changes for, 15 solid minutes, just that. And then I could go in, and then I would start working on the chords themselves. But I would always make sure, no matter what my focus was, that I would always end the session with something fun. Because remember, we play music, and play is fun. So always ending your session with something that you enjoy, whether it's repertoire or a technique that you think is really cool that you finally got down. I think that is really important, because it will give you something to remember your practice session fondly. So it's not all, I'm playing with a metronome, this is so boring. But making sure that you take the time to do something fun during your session is just as important as the hard stuff.
And actually, Claudia, what you'll see is kind of walkthrough for Edelweiss too is very similar to how I approach working with students, and seeing what they need to focus on.
Yeah.
But I think you'll pick up a lot from the next segment.
Yeah, for
Awesome.
sure.
Any other questions before we start playing? I'm so anxious
There
to start
is
playing.
one person who had a question from our Artist Works forum, and they had bought. I'm gonna. Erin writes in, and she said that she bought an old Kamaka pineapple, and it's got friction
cool.
tuners, and they slip, and they're very hard to tune. Is there any secret to adjusting them, or should I just take it to my local music store?
Yeah, so the secret is to go on South Street to the Kamaka dealer, and or to the Kamaka factory and have them replace. Now, the friction tuners are hard, and again,
They are hard.
the old ones too is just they either end up stripping, or you end up when you tighten it with the screw. I would probably replace it. I would actually reach out to Kamaka themselves and
Yes.
see if they have some original parts that they could send you to replace those.
Or you can send it
Or
to
you send your
Kamaka.
ukulele in. Which I always tend to recommend, especially for the older stuff,
Yeah.
because they know what they're doing in that sense.
Yeah, and especially if you have a vintage Kamaka like that, and if everything else is in really great shape and the tuners are giving you trouble, contact Kamaka and see what they say. Because they also might say, "Oh, take it to X dealer because they're actually certified to be able to fix our instruments." I know some guitars have that. I don't know about ukulele manufacturers, but some of them are certified to be able to fix in your neighborhood. So, but yeah, definitely having the people that built it take a look at it is usually best, just to ensure that it gets fixed to the maximum
Level.
yeah.
Yeah, quality.
Yes.
Now, before we do get started, one of the things that I really do want to challenge you guys with is, again, take the time to prioritize, and we have a tendency to focus on things when they go wrong, and this we see it all the time, and especially for those that we've worked with for a while, we tend to remind them how much they've actually learned and can do. So don't forget, one of the things that I love reminding people are, when you learn new techniques, or you learn this really cool section, this one song, don't just stop it. Try to include these techniques in songs that you already play. Try to change how you play songs. Again, always, I used to challenge students right away with, like, try to play the song 5 different ways. And this is where you realize how much you have under your belt already. And just because it's not a new song per se, it's utilizing all the knowledge you have to create something new with an older song. And that's part of that overall growth. And I think it's a nice reminder that you can do so much already with what you have. It doesn't always have to be a brand new song.
And also, let's say you spend a lot of time really working on your hammer-ons and pull-offs, right? And you go back and you are working on, a song that's in the key of G that you loved, maybe something like "O Pihi Man" or something, and then try to utilize that technique specifically to that old song that you've always played. You'll discover, especially with the G chord, for example, that I could lift up and add a hammer on that second fret A string, or I could also add a hammer on that third fret, or I could pull off all of those notes. It almost sounds like a Carole King song, but anyway, but going through and adding those kinds of things to songs that you already know and love, because as Craig mentioned, it is easy to forget how far you've come. If you don't take a step back, look back at songs that you already know and love and go, how can I utilize the things that I've learned on this song? One thing that I know I love about our Artist Work School is the fact that you do videos of yourself, and then you can go back and watch them, and then you'll see the progress you've made. I love that because it is so easy, because you're in the thick of it. It's just like, you remember when you were little and how your parents' friends would see you and go, "Oh my gosh, you've grown so much," but you're like, "No, I haven't," because you're in the thick of it. You don't realize how much you have grown.
And also, then now you can discover what you look like at the jams. If you have a really stressful face when you play or not.
That's true. A lot of times people look so, especially in workshops, oh man, people look so angry because our natural thinking face is really, tight, and you're thinking really hard. You just look angry.
All right. Are there any other questions besides what was asked already? And if not, we're gonna get started playing some music.
Then you can
together.
put on your thinking faces.
But I'll leave it up for just 90 seconds before we switch over.
Yeah.
But thank you again for taking the time to ask such great questions.
Yes.
And we will try to continue this once a month, even when the baby's here.
Well, don't worry. We will make sure that the baby does get some screen time so you guys can meet him when he does arrive. Because, he'll probably be in a bassinet right in between us here.
We'll have a little baby cam in the
Oh,
corner.
we could do that, yeah. Baby cam. Yeah.
All right, let's get started. Okay, everyone get your ukuleles out.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is based on a high G arrangement, but emoji
Yes.
will still sound fine. It'll just sound a little different.
And we do have a PDF, though you won't need it for the live stream itself. But the PDF will be a handy thing to have. It's in the description below the video. You'll see the link. Copy that link. It's not clickable in the description. So you'll copy it and put it in whatever your browser is and go to it. Just fill out our form for your email address, and then you get the free PDF from us.
All right, so now someone mentioned that it was who wrote that?
Oh, I helped her by saying you need to copy the link. It's not
No,
clickable.
Rogers and Hammerstein. Was it really? Or not Irvine Berlin?
I will triple check, but I thought Irving Berlin actually wrote this particular song for the movie. But I will triple check that.
Okay. Well, one of the big things to remember for the song is it is in 3/4 time, so it does have that waltz feel. But we have chords C, G7, C, F, C, A minor, D minor, G7. And again, one of the things to remember, even with all those chords, one of the big
Yes.
things to kind of keep in mind
I was wrong.
with your left hand is keep everything nice and centered with that resting spot here, because you're going to go from a C, G7, C, F, C, A minor, D minor, G7. And it should be that smooth because you don't need to do any of that crazy wrist things. Everything is nice and supported right there. Then it repeats with a little bit of difference in the second line. C, G7, C, F, C, G7, C twice. Chorus, G7, G7, C, F, D7, G7. Nothing that fancy. What we're going to do, we'll play along once. We'll sing through the form. The second time through, when we repeat, I'll do a chord melody version of it. Then we'll come back in with the chorus.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of say these things out loud as we go through. Yeah. All right, you want to do a little
And
vamp to
remember,
start us off?
it's in 3/4 time.
So we're going to play together, and we'll teach you what you heard us do, and then we'll play it all together again.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You ready? Edelweiss, Edelweiss. Every morning you greet me, small and white, clean and bright. You look happy to meet me. Blossom of snow, may you bloom and grow forever.
Canary. So
I love that song.
really, really beautiful song. And it's just it's deceivingly simple, yet you can make it as hard as you want it to be. And that's some of the kind of things we're gonna kind of look at now. Chord wise, as a rhythm play for that one, is there anything in particular that you would do differently? How were you emphasizing the 3/4 times?
So instead of just strumming, I don't know if you noticed, I'm actually not just doing this, which you can do. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm actually doing a picking technique, and because I am playing with a high G uke, what I am doing is I have my finger is assigned G, my thumb is on the G, index is on the C, middle is on the E, ring is on the A. And what I am doing is, I'm just going to have open strings right now, is picking the C and then picking the 3 other strings after. So it looks like this. So we've got C. So this isn't always the easiest technique for folks because you're having to do different fingers. So again, it's your index on the C, everyone else. And that's giving me sort of a bass note. If I actually have a low G, I could alternate between the G string. It's going to sound funny on my high G, but if I'm low G, I could do thumb on the G, 3 strings, and then the C string, thumb on the G, and then index. So I can go back and forth between these 2 strings. But again, I wouldn't do that unless I had a low G uke. But if I'm playing chords, I'm just doing the C string with my index and then plucking the other 3. So I have my C chord, then the G7, C, and then the F. And that's the technique that I am doing there. One other thing that I'm also doing that's not necessarily in the music, and it's purely optional if you want to do it, is actually in the chorus. You might have noticed that actually chorus 1, 2, 3, 4th measure in, where it says C, I actually moved to a C7 because I like the sound of that C7 moving to F. For those of you that are thinking theoretically, what I'm thinking of is that's a C7 chord is the 5 chord of an F, and so that transition naturally sounds really nice. And even though Craig is still playing C,
what are you talking? Where are you?
It's in the chorus 1, 2, 3, 4th measure.
Oh
in.
Yeah.
And so for me, even though Craig is still playing C, remember that C7 is just a C chord with a friend. So it's not a big deal if he plays C and I play C7 during that. It sounds really nice actually when I'm playing the baritone uke or the tenor uke, and he's playing the traditionally tuned and I go to the dominant chord there. But that's really the only things I was doing. I might not have played, this rhythm the whole time. When he did chord melody, you might have noticed I laid back a little bit and just did. And I left some space. And that's also important if you know there's going to be instrumentation.
Now, one of the things I was doing when we're doing the rhythm parts and when she was singing, I would accent a little bit on, let's say, that G7 and that second measure of the first verse. I would jump up to this G7, which is bar 10, middle finger on 11 on the C string. And then I would add a 9th note, which is the ring finger on the 12. So bar 10, middle finger on the C string, ring finger on the 12 on the A. So I would do one hit, and then I would release my ring finger. So you have that little nice movement, just to give a little bit of that higher range. So can we play the first 2 measures?
Sure.
So let's do
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Again, just to give a little bit of accent. It's not meant to be this super power horse I'm not gonna hit it super strong, but just a little nice thing there. I would do maybe a C chord up here, 0787. Again, to give a little bit more range between the two instruments. Some of you might have saw me do on the D minor. I did so 2210, and what I started with was an open E, and I would do the good old inside outside roll with a hammer on. What that means is I'm taking my thumb and index, doing on the two middle strings. So I'm hitting C string and then the E string. So thumb and then index. Hammer on that first fret, and then the outside strings, thumb, and then the A on the index. So inside, hammer, outside. I might have phrased it a little bit differently to fit. Let's try it from that second line. So start with the C chord. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, C to A minor. So right there.
Ooh.
And then it went to the G7. So again, inside, hammer, outside to the G7. And for a lot of my pattern there, to kind of stay out of her way, I just did a thumb on the C string and then up on these two strings. So a lot of times I'm just playing 3 strings just to give, again, a little bit more simplicity to the side of it. So let's try that again, the entire first verse. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just these little things that really help enhance that sound, and they're not that difficult, right? There's nothing there, just remembering to get up there, and you have a little bit of break. C to an A minor, a D minor, inside, hammer, outside to a G7. Some of you guys might have seen me go to this gigantic G7, which looks like a small G7. And again, if you take that small G7 and go up 1, 2 frets, and then extend these two guys. So it looks like a small G7, but 2 frets up with the extension. So fret-wise, 0, 5, 3, 5. Falls really nicely over a small G7, so it's really, really nice. Now, I want to start talking about the chord melody, and I'll do my best to kind of squeeze at least the verses in for this. And I'll do another video for the Artist Work students, but I'm gonna try to get through this. Now, not as hard as you think. We're gonna start off with 2 middle strings, so the C and the E. I'm using 2 fingers and not my thumb. The reason is the thumb will come into play a little bit later. So this means anything on the C string, index, anything on the E string is middle, anything on the A string is your ring. So 2 middle strings, then left hand, middle finger on the 4th fret, index on the 3rd, C and E. So middle finger on the 4th, on the C string, index on the 3rd fret of the E. So same 2 middle strings. So we have an open, and then the 4 and 3. Open, 4 and 3, open, 4 and 3. Good. Now, index stays where he is. Middle finger is going to go up to that 5th dot. Ring finger is going to drop to that 5th dot on the A string. And this should look super familiar because we just talked about this gigantic G7. So, it started off with open strings. 2 middle open strings. I dropped my 4 and 3. 4 on the C, 3 on the E. Then the next chord, slide that middle finger up, index is going to drop, and that's the gigantic G7. Now, because we're holding 3 strings, we will hit all 3 strings on the bottom. So it's going to sound like this. Not too bad, right? And one more time, open, 4 and 3, slide up. Good. Now, next 3 hits. We're going to go down to the C chord. So that means because we're on the A string, we're going to hit 3 strings. So again, the C, E, and A. Now, take your middle finger, bring it right over to the E string, and we're only going to hit 2 strings though, the C and the E string, and drop to the 1 on the E string. So what I'm saying for this phrase is going from a C chord, and we're going to walk down to that F note. And And again, we're doing 3 strings, then the 2 middle strings, and then drop to the 1. Last time it's going to look like this. From the C chord, 3 strings. Then take your middle finger right next to him and the 2 middle strings, and then drop to the 1, 2 middle strings. So far we have open, 4 and 3, slide up, rest. Rest C chord, walk it down to the F, rest, rest. Not bad, right? Now, the open strings yet again, we're going to hit it 3 times, but this time there's going to be a little bit of rest. It's going to sound like this. 1, rest. Let's try that again. 1, rest, hit, hit. Last time. 1, rest, hit, hit. Good. Now, after we do those 3 hits, 1, rest, hit, hit, we're going to drop that same hinge with that left hand, 2 and 1 this time. So middle finger on the 2nd fret of C, index on the 1st fret of the E. Let me hear you play that. Now we're going to hit it once there, and then slide it up 2 frets, back to where we started at the 4 and 3. So let's try that again, from 2 and 1 to 4 and 3. Again, 2 and 1, 4 and 3. Good. So that section is going to sound like this. The 2 middle strings. 1, rest, hit, hit, walk, up. One more time. 1, rest, hit, hit, walk, up. Good. Now from here, we can go to just a straight C chord, and we'll do 3 strings. Or actually 4, we could do 4 strings. Oh no, I'm sorry, wrong part. Now, the next chord is a D minor chord, but we're just going to take this shape and we're going to slide it back down to 2 and 1. So again, we went from 1, rest, hit, hit, slide, up. I'm going to take him back down, and we're going to do a strum down, and we're going to keep that A string open because that's our melody note. Now, here's the cool thing. We have a G7 chord next, so we're going to make a full G7 chord, but we need a G note as our melody note, which happens to be on that G string, but it's very boring if it sounded like, right? So we want to fill that chord up, but in order to get that G note to ring, we're going to have to strum backwards. So it's going to sound like this, which is a very, very pretty sound going up the frets as well. So that whole section is going to sound like this. 1, rest, hit, hit, walk, up. Now bring that shape down with the open A, strum down, close off the G7 and come backwards. Nice. So far we have 1, 2, 3. Rest, rest, C, walk down to F. Rest, rest, open, hit, hit, walk, up, G7 and backwards. 2, 3.
Yeah.
Not too bad, right?
And you'll notice, for those of you that have downloaded the PDF, I actually do have arrows reminding you to strum up, down versus up, etc.
From there, and again, you'll be able to rewind and watch this to really help nurture that. I want to keep pushing forward. It's going to repeat. Now, this is the second ending here. Open strings, drop that 4 and 3 hinge again, 2 hits. Then walk up the open A to the B note or 2, and then a C chord. 2, 3, and again. So that's the entire first verse, or both verses actually. So up to there is going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3. Walk up. 2, 3. 2, 3 repeats. Rest, rest, C, walk to F. Rest, rest, open. 4 and 3. Walk up the A. 2, 3. Now,
Pretty.
the chorus is my favorite part of this whole song. we're going to start with that gigantic G7. Well, actually, we'll use 3 fingers for that. Now, I said our thumb was going to hang out, and this is where he comes in. We're going to do 3 strings on that high G7, 0, 5, 3, 5. 2 hits with the thumb on the open G. Now, go back to a small G7. Now, what we're going to do here is alternate between these 3 fingers and that thumb. So let's try this for just a second. Good. Find somewhere it's nice and relaxed. Good. Now, from here, we're going to do that once with the thumb. Now, open A, 3 strings, thumb. Now, let's try that a couple times. So we're going to do a G7 with the ring finger on, and then open A. Again, on, off, on, off, on, off. Good. Now, take that ring finger after it's off, place it on the 3rd fret of the E string, and we're only going to hit 2 strings this time, followed by thumb. So it's going to sound like this. So you have that nice walk down.
And I just want to add, in the PDF, we did the basic version. So this thumb part that's is actually being added in this video. So be sure to make a note as you're looking through.
All right, so after that, we have the open 2 middle strings, 4 and 3. And you can either play a regular C chord like this, or from 4 and 3, you can just collapse that index and play a C chord up here, which is middle finger on that 4 that we were playing earlier, and just smash this guy down for those 2 frets on that 3rd fret there. So again, open 4 and 3 to a C chord. Now here's the best part. We have an F. So because we're only playing 3 strings right now, you just need to use that index finger on the E string on the 1st fret. Now single note on the C here, A string, 3rd fret. One more time, so from the F to the C note, and then slide up to the 5th fret, middle finger on 6th fret C string. So this is our D7 chord. So again, down to the F. C note, slide up to the D7. One more time. F, C note to high D7. Then we're going to drop to this D7, 2, 2, 2, 3. G7 on the way down, and then up. Now, again, I'm moving a little faster than normal because I know you're going to be able to rewind when it's archived to really hone this in. But I'll play for you the chorus. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then it goes to that second verse to end the song. Aloha, Cynthia Lynn.
Aloha, Cynthia.
Well, thank you, Tommy, as well. That's so good to hear from you guys. Yeah, Cynthia, don't forget, Cynthia has her end of year Christmas live stream happening today in, I think, 3 hours from now, which is going to be fantastic.
So you can uke all day today.
Yes, it's going to be a fantastic day.
Yeah.
For ukulele music.
Yes.
It's great to see, and of course I'm super jealous because she now lives in Hawaii, on the island that I was born and raised in. It's really cold in San Diego right now.
It's not that cold.
It's probably gonna snow later.
No, it's not. Bless you, my love. Do you want to run through? Oh, yes, that's right. Today, 3 p.m. Pacific time. That's when Cynthia Lynn's live stream will be. So, if you want more holiday cheer with ukulele, definitely join her later today.
Now, I want to go full circle on. Did Craig do something? I know, right? You should see. Yeah, it's. I cut myself, but that's all right. This is why the office is now in the living room.
Yes.
But full circle here with the song is that thumb really didn't do much throughout that song, but here's where we can really put it into play. You know, the next step, the next challenge is when you do have a rest, fill that in with the thumb on that open G. So for example, instead of just doing now all of a sudden I can do something like this. And it helps really give that texture and a much fuller sound. And again, what's important is the other stuff. The thumb is just that nice drone in between, unless it's part of the melody line, like that chorus.
And this is especially great to do if you are alone, because it's helping you keep time, but it also really helps make you have a fuller sound as well. And it's what a difference one note makes,
Yes.
right?
And again, this is the beautiful thing about music. You can make it as simple or as hard as you want it to be, and everything in between. But we wanted to take this time to showcase, again, even with a simple song like this, how kind of advanced you can make it. And for those who are pushing to that next step, one of the I know it never stops with me. But one of the things you can try, instead of now the open G during those rests, try a different string, but still fill in those rests.
Yeah.
So for example, we could do something like. Or you can, like that inside-outside roll, you could do. I mean, again, it's about using all of these different things in your arsenal to make your things just fuller. You know, don't be afraid to mix and match techniques that you use for other songs. Again, this is all full circle at this point. It's just, you know, we want you to remember how much you can do.
And even if you're doing basic rhythm, you can still use some of those things. For example, you know, Edelweiss, Edelweiss. Right? You can add those to your vocals if you aren't doing the chord melody. You know, simple little things like that. You can of course move up and down the fretboard as well, but remember that it doesn't just have to be for the chord melody that you do those things too. Should we play it
Let's
to
play it
end
one
out?
time. Same thing as last time.
Okay.
Same order. Yeah.
All right.
So get your ukes out.
And we'll do C, G7, C, G7 so that I can kind of get a starting note. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This has just been a really fun live stream. Probably the last one before the baby comes. So.
Yeah, the next live stream should have a little one in the corner.
Yeah,
We'll
baby
see.
cam. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas, happy
holidays.
Hanukkah, and
3 o'clock, Cynthia Lynn's channel for her live stream play along.
yeah.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be
Yes.
a fantastic day.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Edelweiss, Edelweiss. Every morning you greet me, small and white, clean and bright. You look happy to me. snow, may you bloom and grow, bloom and grow forever. Edelweiss, Edelweiss, bless my homeland forever.
But thank you guys so much for taking time to join us,
Yes.
and allowing us to share some fun music with you guys. And thank you for all the well wishes and all the emails we got with the baby and everything. We're very
Yes.
excited to have you guys meet him in January.
Yes, absolutely. And I will be fixing the PDF after the live stream so that it shows the true folks that wrote it, Rogers and Hammerstein. Merry Christmas.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
Hanukkah.
Aloha, everyone.
Bye.